Welcome to They Said We Said, and this is John bringing you a spoiler review of the first 3 episodes of Marvel's Iron Fist. So I've really wanted to branch out and do more TV show reviews, and I would have loved to have done, Daredevil Season 2, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage, the other Marvel Netflix shows that will lead up to the Defenders eventually. But, at the time I didn't have the channel, so we do have Iron Fist running now, so let's talk about that. So, a little brief history of the character of Iron Fist. We won't jump too much into it just because later on down the road we'll make kind of a connection video or kind of a comparison video between the comic books and the show. Maybe we'll do that for all of them. Maybe we'll do that for the Defenders and Jessica Jones, Punisher, and all that. But right now, we're just going to kind of dive into the show. So Iron Fist, the comic book character, first premiered in Marvel Premiere, number 15 in 1974. The character was created by Roy Thomas and Gil Kane. It followed the story of Danny Rand, a superhero that had a connection to his chi, a martial artist that could summon the powers of the Iron Fist. And so far, at least in the first 3 episodes, the show is very true to the comic book in this kind of origin story. Scott Buck, Iron Fist showrunner, has other notable works under his belt, such as 6 Feet Under and Dexter, where he served as a writer/showrunner on those shows, helming this kind of 5th installment of the Marvel Netflix universe. The show stars Finn Jones, the titular character of Danny Rand, aka the Iron Fist. It also stars Jessica Henwick as Colleen Wing, Tom Pelphrey as Ward Meacham, Jessica Stroup as Joy Meacham, and David Wenham as Harold Meacham. The very first episode, directed by John Dahl, which is titled Snow Gives Way, we get introduced to Finn Jones as Danny Rand. We get kind of a cool setup scene and an early action scene where you just kind of see Danny Rand kind of walking through the streets of New York barefoot, and he goes into the Rand Corporation building. Realistically, he gets kind of asked to leave, and which turns forcibly because he kind of looks like he's a homeless person with no shoes on, walking into a multi-billion-dollar company. So we get that first initial kind of cool fight scene with the guards, kind of breaks into what you think would probably be his office, and that's our first introduction to the characters Joy Meacham and Ward Meacham. Right away, we know that there's some kind of familiarity with these characters and Danny Rand. He alludes to them being friends in the past, and is looking for their father, Harold Meacham, who at this point we learn was kind of Danny's father's, it's Rand Corporation, but Danny's father was kind of had a business partner, being Harold Meacham. We learn that he is also deceased. So it appears that Ward and Joy are in control of Rand Corporation. And realistically, Danny is met with extreme pushback from the Meacham brother and sister because just some random bum off the street is claimed to be their long-lost dead friend from 15 years ago, that a plane crash went down in the Himalayas and the Rands were on that plane. So, this could be just any random person back, kind of con artist trying to claim something, because he would have 51% stake in the Rand Corporation. So, obviously, they're not just going to just give him the keys to the kingdom. Will say, I really like Tom Pelphrey's character as Ward Meacham. I think it's just a thing with Marvel TV where if you have the name Ward somewhere in your name, you have to be a dick, which is great because this guy is just kind of dead face, long face, like no joy to him at all. No joy to him at all. Not his sister's. Gross, this isn't Game of Thrones. Tom Pelphrey plays the kind of slimy, kind of corporate, stuck-up little shit really well. Which, like I said, a Ward character, you think of Grant Ward, and he looks very similar to Grant Ward from Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is kind of funny, both named Ward. Not connected at all. The rest of this episode is kind of Danny trying to reclaim his name. Of course, he has no ID or anything, so he goes back to the Rand household, which he kind of breaks in, does a little, wire trick scene to kind of parkour into the open window upstairs, or he finds out that Joy lives there, first of all. And then, he's kind of beset upon by Joy's Rottweiler, but, Danny has learned some stuff in his travels, and he kind of calms the beast and locks him away. While strolling in the park trying to kind of figure out why everyone is shunning him so much, especially his quote-unquote childhood friends, we get the introduction of Colleen Wing, played by Jessica Henwick. And let me tell you, so far, she is the best thing about this series. And like I said, I'm only 3 episodes in, and I haven't, I'm not reviewing it all at once, and I've only watched the first 3 episodes, but so far, I can tell you, Jessica Henwick's Colleen Wing is everything that's great about this particular show. She's awesome, she's badass, she's sexy, she's an amazing character, and I'm really happy with her casting. So we find, so Danny kind of finds Colleen in the park. So similar to Claire's character from the ending of Luke Cage, where she kind of finds a self-defense class, and Claire is kind of Rosario Dawson's character is the connective tissue to all of the Marvel Netflix series. So we know, I know down the road, this is no spoilers or anything if you're not past where I am right now, that Claire does, Night Nurse, as she's known in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, does show up in Iron Fist as well later on down the road. Danny's just kind of trying to make this early connection with Colleen Wing, who owns her own dojo. The rest of the episode is just kind of filled with Danny trying to convince the Meacham kids that he is who he says he is, and to no avail. But we do learn that Harold Meacham, for we don't know why at this point in episode 1, is actually kind of locked away in the tower. His super multi-billion-dollar condo, not a bad place to be locked up, but he is alive, and he is kind of the puppet master behind Rand Corporation and kind of telling Ward what to do. And Joy doesn't know that he's alive. At least that's what it shows so far. Harold Meacham, played by David Wenham, which you know from being Faramir from Lord of the Rings series, and oh man, I forgot his name, but he's also in 300 as kind of the right-hand man to King Leonidas, the one that kind of loses an eye. Spoiler alert. He is Harold Meacham. He is I guess a villain, but he's got a lot going on in the background. I don't know how to feel about his character so far. He's just kind of a dick, and he has this kind of like assistant that he just keeps at like all hours of the night that doesn't question anything and just intimidates. I don't know why. He must be paying a pretty penny to do this. So at one point, Danny confronts Joy at the doorstep of Rand Manor, I guess, where Joy lives. And she kind of sees firsthand of Danny's powers, where he kind of backs into the street. A cab comes rolling by, and he does this cool little superhero wire trick flip over it. So, that's kind of affecting her. She's kind of starting to buy into the possibility that this might be their long-lost, dead kind of stepbrother, or, just childhood friend. Ward is not having any of this, and at this point, Ward doesn't care if it is or not. He just doesn't want Danny around. Even to the extreme, going to the extreme of trying to get him assassinated during kind of like a Mardi Gras, like an Asian-themed Mardi Gras scene in the streets of New York. Danny pushes a little too far, shows up to Rand, Joy Meacham's office, and guess what? She drugs him. He fades to black, and he wakes up in a mental hospital. So now we're on to episode 2. Episode 2, titled Shadowhawk Takes Flight, also directed by John Dahl, is just kind of him in a mental hospital, which sounds kind of boring, but it wasn't too bad. You get introduced to a fun character that you probably won't see again. He's just kind of one of the other patients. And kind of has his tour guide, and basically it's just Danny trying to convince, again, everyone of who he is. His psychiatrist is not having it at first. He says he doesn't believe him, and then, kind of all this proof, all these, childhood memories that Danny has as Danny Rand, in a lot of flashbacks to the crash in the Himalayas that took his parents, are kind of sprinkled throughout. And finally Joy kind of sends him the ultimate kind of ID check, where she sends him a bag of M&Ms. So, you know, we get Colleen Wing involved. She comes and kind of is the UPS store of this episode, and she brings him some M&Ms, but this is kind of the ultimate between you and I check. He picks out all the brown ones. That's enough for Joy. So this is my problem with Joy Meacham. And this goes in a little bit into episode 3, I believe. Joy Meacham is, once she's on board with Danny being Danny Rand, she is like all, you know, upset and just kind of like, oh my God, what did we do? I just, you know, we got to get him out of there. And Ward basically says, no, I insist. I don't care who he is. I don't care if he is Danny. He's still crazy and he's not getting any of our money. The huge, like, shift from Joy being so happy, almost like relieved and emotional that there is a possibility that this can be Danny Rand, to just being stone cold hard bitch. And she just basically says, you know, here's a buyout, but more on that later. He just kind of finally convinces the doctor that he is Danny Rand, but also he goes a little too far and spills the beans about the Iron Fist powers and character, and so the doctor now has reason to keep him there. Harold Meacham leaves the loft and shows up in kind of almost like a dream kind of sequence to where Danny is being held in the mental institution and has a conversation with Danny. Basically, we find out that the Hand is kind of keeping Harold Meacham where he is, and the Hand is a major connective role to Daredevil and all the other, you know, MCU properties, and I know that's going to be kind of the big bad of the Defenders. So there's our connection with Iron Fist and the rest of our group. Harold, finally being convinced, wants to put Danny into a safe house, kind of the Hamptons, where Ward is just not having it. He just wants Danny gone. So against his father's will, he tries to put a hit on Mr. Rand. But guess what? The more you beat on the Iron Fist, finally we get to see the glowing fist, and he just beats the hell out of a couple of thugs and gets a cool punching scene through the asylum door and escapes. So kind of a flash forward to episode 3 now, Rolling Thunder Canyon Punch. Rolling Thunder Canyon Punch, really? This one's directed by Tom Shankland. Sorry, I didn't really do too much research on your other work. We find out that the first place where Danny shows up is the dojo that Colleen Wing runs. And also, we're finally, you know, more aggressively kind of, you know, he's kind of scorned from Joy, had enough from Ward, you know, playing nice from Ward and Joy, especially after she tries to buy his name out for actually a pretty penny, a couple $100 million or something like that. I don't remember the exact amount. I would probably change my name for that, but, you know, he is worth a lot more, and I guess, you know, his name is very important to him. So he doesn't take the bait, and like I said, you know, I said we'll talk about kind of Joy's switch later. She is such, she went from such like an emotional, almost like relief that Danny was still around, to now she just wants to get rid of him as well, as much as Ward. You know, she tries to buy him out, that doesn't work. Then he kind of makes a last-ditch effort after another kind of hit is put on Danny, where they kind of burn down some records, some medical records he had when he was a kid, when he broke his arm skateboarding. He just learned that the Meachams just hate him, and Joy goes from kind of, you know, being happy to just kind of just saying, hey, I don't know what you think this is, we're not brother and sister, get the hell out of here. It was just kind of a weird hard turn that seemed a little disconnected, that I wasn't a big fan of. Then we are introduced to Jerry Hogarth from Jessica Jones, the most powerful lawyer in the MCU. Carrie Ann Moss, it's great to see her again. She had some amazing scenes in Jessica Jones, and so far she's one of the bright spots of Iron Fist as well. So, you know, we're all kind of going pee-pee in our big boy pants because Jerry Hogarth is at the table trying to, you know, fighting for Danny Rand, and she just kind of, it's like watching an adult play with third graders. You get the petulant little Meachams at the table going, haha, you know, you're not going to get anything from us. She kind of proves everything, makes everyone look stupid by a fingerprint on a childhood pottery project, and it was an amazing scene. So we get our reintroduction to Madame Gao from also, you know, Daredevil, and I believe she showed up in Luke Cage a little bit as well. I'd have to fact check that. Anyways, we just kind of get her voice. Harold Meacham is in complete control by the Hand they're watching every single one of his moves. He hears that the Iron Fist is the sworn enemy of the hand. So at this point, I know he's an antagonist, but he is kind of trying, he sees a great value in Danny to get him out of the situation he's in. So unlike his son, Ward, where Ward is trying to kill him on the spot, Harold is trying to kind of almost like just kind of safeguard him and recruit him to see if he could get him out of these problems that he has found himself in with the hand. So Danny's staying with Colleen Wing at the dojo. You know, Ward kind of sends some goons to kind of look for him, but, you know, Colleen kind of takes care of business. You know, again, I really like her character. She is a teacher. She has this kind of group of kids that's always around and that she's trying to teach life lessons to. She finds out that one of them is cage fighting for, you know, just money. You know, he's probably a starving college student and kind of gets on his ass about that. But by the end of episode 3, we find her in the ring with a really creepy, like, David Batista looking mother effer. And he's like had to be warned, and he's almost 86 from the illegal cage ring, you know, racket for biting, which is pretty gross, and he is all too eager to step in the ring with our little Colleen Wing. But, you know, again, she's badass, she takes care of business, and she makes a little extra cash. But you know, it's just a little too much heat, little too much pressure, so we get Danny kicked out. But hey, guess what? We have Jerry Hogarth on our side, so he gets put up in a very nice penthouse setting with some cash, you know, for some shoes finally. So just to kind of round out the end scene, Danny kind of follows Ward up to Harold Meacham's, you know, kind of sanctuary, and it's kind of like a Lannister and Bran Stark kind of scene where Danny's kind of peeking through the window just to get a hand pushed out off the skyscraper, so to speak. But Danny does wake up on the Meacham's couch in the beginning of episode 4. So, Ward doesn't kill him, and it looks like they're about to have a conversation, but that will be covered more or in the next video where we cover episode 4, 5, and 6. So, just initial thoughts on this show. So far, Finn Jones is not really selling it for me. Being Luke Cage, Daredevil, and Jessica Jones, he is kind of my least favorite of the 4 so far. Maybe it will get better. He just has this weird kind of doe-eyed kind of like attitude. I don't know. But it's just kind of grating on me a little bit. But there is a lot to like here as well. You know, some more action scenes would do, you know, well. There are some kind of good villains once we kind of figure out who the villains are. And, you know, and the additions of characters that we've seen in the past, like Jerry Hogarth, is great. So far I had to say it's my least favorite of the 4 Marvel Netflix franchises, but it's still early in the season. So thanks for listening to my early kind of review of Iron Fist for the first 3 episodes, and I can't wait to come back for episode 4, 5, and 6, and leading up to the Defenders, which we're going to cover the hell out of that as well. So guys, my name is John. You could find me at the They Said We Said Facebook group, as John Dunning, at Orzhov Dunn on Twitter, and They Said We Said on Instagram. So come message me there, come find me there, and we'll have some chats about whatever you want, whether it be Magic Gathering, Walking Dead, now Iron Fist. I'd love to hear from you guys, and I'll see you next time.